Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Webinar Thursday with us here at DealerOn. We are inching towards summer. We already have summer vibes with our technology fun this morning. I've given up on the regular school year. No, I'm kidding. My kids have 3 weeks left of school. We're in the Pacific Northwest. We're all just doing our best. We're going to finish off in one piece. I'm guessing I am not alone, but there's lots more screen time for them, which means lots more screen time for me, including Facebook and Instagram. So today's topic is especially relevant to my household right now. Do you guys see what I did there? Excellent. My name is Erin Zabarak. I'm your host. I'm the director of marketing here at DealerOn. And I am excited to be joined by our Director of Media Strategy, Mike Rolfs. And no offense to you, Mike, but I am extra excited to welcome a special guest from Meta, Dealer Tech Lead Ryan Bowles. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here today.
Definitely. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, we have already had technology fun, but a few logistics while I see people getting settled in. We are recording the training today. We will send you both the deck and recording after the webinar. You should see a Q&A section here in Zoom. I will be monitoring that section and responding throughout the webinar. We do have a jam-packed agenda today, so we won't have as much time as usual to weave questions in and out live, but I promise I'll pull some of the extra good ones, and I will be hanging out with you in that Q&A chat room, whatever we want to call it. I also anticipate a few questions surrounding Meta support and how to get in touch with someone to claim your business profile, make a change, or a million other things that I know we all encounter on the day-to-day. Ryan's fantastic. He is not support though, so I will post a great reference page for everyone to utilize specific to business support on Meta. All right, with that, yeah, gang's all here. They're still joining. Let's get into it because we've got a lot to cover. Scroll Stopping Social Strategies is the name of this webinar. Say that 5 times fast. Mike, let's have you kick us off on the right foot here. Talk to us about what a social strategy really should look like. I'm sure that's a super easy answer, right?
I mean, yeah, there's no details or, challenges or hurdles or anything with regards to, building any strategy, not just social strategy. So in looking at this, first of all, thanks for having me on. Excited to work with Ryan and collaborate with Ryan on this. We've worked together on a few different projects, so we'll be able to speak to those and, talk about social strategy. So with that, I look at this as a full holistic, full funnel holistic approach and, from a social strategy, but really, what does that even mean? In short, it's really just targeting shoppers throughout their car buying journey from start to finish, with a relevant campaign, with relevant messaging, at every single stage and every phase of where they're at. So whether they're starting that journey, and just, research phase, or they're, a few weeks in and they're looking at different brands, comparing different vehicles, or they're going to buy tomorrow. You really need to be in front of them at every single phase of that journey. And it's not just, tactic specific, meaning, the old Fred Flintstone philosophy of one tactic, one channel is focused on, high intent, low funnel. Like those days are over. They've been over. And I think from a DealerOn, perspective, our approach and philosophy to just digital advertising in general across tactic is making sure that we use that full funnel holistic approach across everything. So that especially rings true, with social media. Why? Because today we are probably at the, we're all-time high of scrolling, right? Social media dominates, just like you said, Aaron. You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram. Anytime you have a downtime with any part of your day, you're probably scrolling, right? And so that rings true to social media. And that's why our strategy really, it goes into multiple campaign formats with multiple objectives so that we can reach that consumer and that shopper at any point in their buying journey. And then obviously, once they click through and they come to the website, we're making sure that that high intent shopper is, having a great experience and hopefully submits that lead, which in turn, sets that appointment and eventually delivers that car. But again, just reiterating that it's so important today to make sure that you are creating campaign formats that are touching every part of the funnel, staying in front of that shopper. And I know Ryan's going to dig a little bit deeper on the Meta side, and the partnership that we've had with them in utilizing the Meta vehicle and the platform to really get in front of our customers and drive that incredible performance has really been beneficial to the success of all of our clients. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, Ryan, dive on in.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, team. And again, like quick introductions, again, Ryan Bowles. Previously, I helped kind of support and build out a lot of the marketing kind of operations and solutions for a major group in a past life. But for the last 3.5 years, have been really focused in on dealer retail at Meta. So partnering with partners like DealerOn and the agency layer across the space, dealers, OEMs, marketplaces. So part of what we're excited to share with you today, I think, is some of the learnings that we see kind of holistically across the vertical. Some of the things that I've personally learned along the way here, kind of handling and navigating the objections, the feedback, kind of the use cases that we see. But then really lean in on like what are tactics and strategies that we've tested with DealerOn and others today that are starting to emerge as like really interesting best practice. And we'll have a few action items to close out with. First area that we'll talk through is about optimization goals. I think Mike and Aaron both kind of highlighted it, but for me, like over my time here at Meta, the number that really stands out is 50%. Half of the world's population is leveraging Meta today, which is mind blowing. And the US adoption is pretty significant, continuously growing year over year in daily users, monthly users. So when you think about like kind of where Meta fits kind of in the shopping journey, a lot of times the objections I used to hear quite a lot were Meta's a traffic driver. It's more about awareness and consideration. But the reality is we reach nearly every automotive shopper across the space at every different part of this journey. Well, we'll talk a little bit today about some of the ways in which you can better reach those consumers. It's really about how our auction works and how our optimization goals help lean into the right part of those segments that we want to get in front of. We'll talk a little bit about some more advanced strategies that we've tested with DealerOn as well that are really exciting on how can you go after more lower funnel shoppers, but take advantage of some of our most advanced targeting as well. And then we'll kind of nod to the future of one of the areas that we're really excited about is also getting better at capturing leads across your dealer websites and some of the challenges that we're going to need to face together in navigating kind of that journey, but also some of the great progress that partners like DealerOn and others have made in being ready to start that journey with us. And we'll
Yeah.
close out with some actions for today.
No, it's fantastic. And you make good points of, I think dealers come to, and think about social advertising as what do I need to get? And leads are of course important, but setting those goals for optimization, I think that's where you're going to start.
Yep.
It's really important to understand what you're expecting and what shoppers and where you need to target. So that I want everybody to keep your thinking hats on of leads, leads, lead. Yes, we're going to get there. We're going to get you leads, but let's talk about the overall goals that you're going to set.
Yep, absolutely. And this, like, candidly has been probably the most important learning for me at my time at Meta, that if I had like a time machine and could go back and redo it all, like this is the one thing that I think really drives the most impact for your business. And that's around our optimization goals with Meta. One of the things, thinking about optimization goals, these are the different objectives that you can set and the specific thing that you're trying to get as a result within your campaigns. So at the ad set level across any Meta campaign, more often than not, what we're seeing is that dealers are running automotive inventory ads. We know it works. It's a catalog product. It has your inventory from your catalog that clicks into the VDP page of those vehicles. But what we're finding as far as the actual setup for these campaigns across the industry, we're seeing a tremendous amount of the dollars focused on link click optimization, which is consumers that we predict at Meta will click a link, but we're not really optimizing for any downstream outcomes. Really, it's just the activity of clicking that we're optimizing for. We're seeing more and more progress of agency partners and dealers going to view content conversion optimization. View content is really optimizing for a VDP view. It's really looking for people that not only will click the ad, but will also look at multiple vehicles deep. This is much more indicative of maybe a mid-funnel to lower funnel shopper. But where there's still a huge opportunity, where very little of the dollars being spent across tier 3 dealers today is in web lead optimization. These are consumers that Meta predicts will not only click the ad, not only visit your website pages deep, but also are most likely to take some sort of action, a lead action that you've designated. That I think is a really important kind of opportunity as we start thinking through this full funnel approach is that Meta's auction, because these different objectives that you're optimizing for are very specific, someone that clicks a link versus views multiple VDP views versus a lead, these technically in some ways are almost like audience levers where I really challenge like all the teammates on this call here is if you're only optimizing to a link click or only optimizing to view content, are you reaching the full in-market opportunity? Are you even reaching the consumers that our platform predicts will take more lead outcomes? So I think that's like a big anchor that I want us to really hone in on is that that's a big question that I encourage you to be challenging your agency partners, looking at your own ad accounts if you're running this self-service, is understanding what optimization goal are you using today? Because oftentimes what I've seen firsthand when I'm talking to dealers, talking to dealer groups, and we jump into Google Analytics, like, oh, like meta traffic, it's like you're driving a lot of traffic to my website, but man, it's not converting. I'm not seeing the conversion. But then when we look at the optimization strategy, more often than not, we're optimizing to link clicks as an example. We're not going to see a lot of the conversion. We're not going to see a lot of the VDP views because we're really optimizing to just driving traffic.
Yeah.
I will say, oh, go
Oh,
on,
go
Aaron.
ahead, please. No, go ahead.
I will say just to kind of make a point about kind of the roles of these different optimizations, there's not one that's better than the other. I think that they all have a place depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. But more often than not, for like a traditional automotive dealer, what we typically would recommend is thinking about it in terms of view content optimization as like your core base, that's VDP views that you're driving, but also layering in some of these additional signals, whether it's lead optimization, link click optimization, maybe it's reach because it's a branding message and you want to get it out to as many people as possible. So there's a different role for each of these optimizations, but I would encourage you to be thinking through if you're only optimizing to one and the outcomes you're seeing maybe suboptimal right now, I would encourage you to challenge yourself and your partners on what other optimizations could I be using that might be yielding better results for what my goal is.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been talking a lot about it the last few webinars too, where, just because your good news report that you get from your agency says, looky, looky, look at all these link clicks. If you're looking for leads, that's not a successful campaign. So it truly is digging into the data and identifying what does good look like. It's just like on your website, traffic might be up, but if it's traffic from the United States versus your local market, that's not great traffic. So absolutely important. And how you prioritize this too.
The other area that we see, just kind of looking across the breadth of the automotive space, is who are the partners that are leaning more heavily into some of these other signals. And so we wanted to give you guys a little bit of a flavor of kind of the current state for tier three dealers specifically, for marketplace partners, and for OEMs that have tier one and tier two websites. And it's really interesting, like the proportion of media that's spent on those different optimization goals. Most local auto dealers are not optimizing to lead signals today. It's heavily weighted towards link click. We're seeing some landing page view. We're seeing more and more adoption of view content, which is those VDP views, which is great. But lead is an area of opportunity for sure. The other area that I think is really eye-opening is when you look across like marketplaces and OEMs. OEMs, for instance, on a tier one, tier two site, they're optimizing to lead outcomes because in many cases, they're delivering those leads back to dealers as OEM provided leads. That's one kind of solution that they're offering a lot of dealers. And we know it's effective and efficient because we're seeing those leads being captured. We're seeing strong cost per actions. And in many cases, those leads are converting further downstream because the OEMs can report on that. On the marketplace side, it's wild because the majority of media is optimizing towards leads, as you might imagine, because a lot of their business models are based off of driving really strong quality VDP activity, but also leads back to your dealership. So as we kind of look across this space, like I think back to that objection of like, man, Meta's a consideration driver, a traffic driver. I think, yes, we are, but we also can be a lead driver if you're optimizing to the outcome that matters most to you. And if lead is part of that campaign strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, I know, with our social suite solution, we drive clicks to a landing page versus to the website or, to an SRP. And we see an 89% increase in lead submission because of that change. So any other tips as far as optimizing? I know we're going to see a few here in the future, but does this all align with what you're seeing with the dealer groups you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every single dealer group in every single point location, they're different, right? Everybody has different objectives. But at the end of the day, what they want to see are leads. And they don't want just leads, they want high quality leads. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this conversation that we'll get into a little bit more is how the quality has changed and evolved based on the platform has advanced, right? And that's what it is. It's always leads, leads, leads. But I think to Ryan's point, it's a good call out. Lean on your agency, lean on, the DealerOns, and hopefully everybody in this call is a DealerOn customer. But if not, lean on that person to articulate the why behind the optimization strategy, right? Because like Ryan said, it's not all about just consideration and awareness. Like it's a full funnel approach. And so we just really need to eloquently articulate that strategy as the why. Like it's not, everything's not just geared towards leads. There's value behind some of these other KPIs that we track.
Yep.
Absolutely. The next slide has what we always get questions for, which is show me examples, show me what good looks like. So take us through this, Ryan. I know you've got some fantastic lead screenshots coming up.
Yeah. So we're going to walk through kind of two different lead strategies that we see across our platform. One we'll start with is on Meta lead formats, and there's a lot of variety there. We'll talk through some of the feedback that we've received around some of those formats, how we're seeing them deployed, the benefits, and some of the friction points that we can share best practices on how to support. The other side that we'll talk about is nodding to the future on web leads here in just a moment. On the lead front, across Meta solutions, we have a lot of different options that sometimes we don't necessarily present, I think, all the different ways that dealers are activating with some of these capabilities. There's lead ads in the traditional sense of being able to capture a traditional form lead that's sent to your CRM. That's one opportunity. There's click to messaging, whether it's click to Messenger, click to Instagram, click to WhatsApp, hybrids of all of those, is a really interesting opportunity as well, because we know that many of the partners that dealers use in the space, the CarNows, the Gubagoos, the Podiums, the Edmunds Car Code, many of them can connect to our platform as well, so that you can have a seamless conversation, whether that client is coming from your dealer website or through one of our Meta properties. There's ad formats that can help amplify that engagement. And it's also a live conversation where there's benefits there just from prospecting. And the last one is click to call, which is an interesting one because I always like to check my own biases here, because I was thinking to myself, like, man, who on earth sees an ad on Facebook and clicks to call a dealership? But when we've tested this with OEMs, it's really interesting because there's the call tracking solutions, whether it's Marchex, Car Wars, you name it, being able to track not just how many calls were received, but the outcomes of those calls as well. It's really interesting the breadth of demographics that click on those ads. I had different expectations of who might be clicking, but was surprised and delighted to see that it's actually a really broad variety of users that are willing to engage with click to call ads, which
And I
kind of
think
tracks
just to
too.
point something out there, Ryan, like I think if somebody's clicking to call, it's high intent, right? So
Yeah.
that's somebody who's really interested in the vehicle they're looking at. I'd be curious to see the breakout by brand as well, just to
Yep.
see just demographic information, but brand. And yeah, like, hey, they're calling you, they're interested.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It's also an interesting one too, because it kind of tracks with, I think, some of the recent kind of feedback we've seen. Like Shift Digital's put out some updates, Four Eyes has put out some updates of kind of the macro trends that they're seeing across the space, and seeing that where leads are still important, they have a place. There's more users and more people, more consumers interested in just calling directly and
Yeah.
engaging with dealerships. So,
I have a
click to
quick fun
calls.
fact. So in April, 74% of appointments set across the United States dealerships were all from phone calls, right?
Yep.
So that ratio of almost a 75-25 from form leads to, whatever form outside of phone calls makes a ton of sense. So phone calls are still, we optimize towards those because the intent is so high.
Yep. So we'll like where we're not going to dig into all of these formats today. We're going to talk specifically about some of the instant form lead ads that has a phone component that we can talk through as well about how we calibrate for getting a better contactable user. Um, I think we'll dig in on a few kind of best practice and recommendations here and some of the case studies that we've seen. You might be wondering like why on Facebook lead formats as like a question though. 'Cause clearly like driving traffic to your dealer website, we want to be able to support that. And we'll talk a little bit about the work that needs to happen to support kind of capturing web leads across your dealer websites. But from a on-platform format, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that when we send traffic to any of your dealership websites today, more often than not, the advertiser, whether it's you doing this directly in the dealership or an agency partner, has to select the financial products and services flag, formerly called HEC, Housing Employment Credit. What that flag requires is basically alerting Meta that there are offers of credit and financing at the landing page. And we have some restrictions on how we can use some of our targeting tools because of that. It's a safeguard measure. It protects users, it protects advertisers. It's something that there's benefits to having that. But admittedly, it's one where it does limit some of the like more advanced capabilities of some of our targeting. You may be familiar with like lookalike audiences of the past and other different ways to kind of use a custom audience that severely limits when you're looking at HEC, financial product and service flagged advertising to your website. But something that we've discovered that I think is really interesting as kind of a more advanced use case is that when you use any of those lead formats, whether it's instant form lead ads, click to messaging, click to call, as long as you don't have an offer of credit or finance in the creative or copy, you can actually relax using that HEC flag because it doesn't meet the requirements or the terms of when that needs to be used, which opens up all of our most advanced targeting, namely some of our Advantage Plus custom audience capabilities. Giving you kind of a quick background of what is Advantage Plus audiences, basically these are our machine learning models that we've adapted and kind of fine-tuned over time, even well beyond the lookalike audiences of the past, where an Advantage Plus custom audience specifically is taking a seed list, so a customer list that you or your agency provides, targets and looks for those users first and delivers ads to them, but then slowly and incrementally expands that audience, trying to find similar users, similar cohorts of users that we predict will take the same action. And we've tested this a lot to really understand for auto, like, does it work? Is it efficient? Is it effective? This particular stat is just a meta-analysis of 15 stores, but I've personally seen this tested across at least 50 in the most recent quarter alone of seeing a similar result. That when you use a high-value custom audience, think maybe an equity list, maybe it's an Equifax list, the IHS Polk like audience list, whatever that custom audience list is, targeting those users, trying to reach a message to them, but expanding beyond that, what we actually see is it's significantly more efficient when you layer in machine learning. 29% median cost per lead savings on average, which is typically what we see. I've not really seen an example of when it's not been more efficient when you layer in some of these, which is kind of interesting, exciting. So I'm pretty like I have a high confidence firsthand seeing these that like the solution works. So this is a way that I think kind of tying it back to these lead ad formats that if you're looking for ways that you can better reach consumers and you want to think about how you use custom audience lists, whether it's first party data or these other third party source lists, lead ad formats in particular unlock some of our most advanced targeting.
Yeah, I love the data here. And I especially love, I know we're going to share this case study next that Mike, I know you're especially proud of too, with one of our customers. But this is the question we always get is, okay, I hear you say this, but where's the data? Where's the case study? You have it here. This was published a few months ago, Ryan. Take us through this, and then Mike, I'll absolutely let you shout about this. RusNext's a fantastic partner.
Yeah, I'll give you just the framing of kind of what was tested, and then I'll let Mike share more context of kind of the dealer perspective and the kind of feedback that we received as well through the process. But at its highest level, we partnered with DealerOn to test what happens when we take a high value audience. In this case, Rusnak and DealerOn were partnering with Equifax, giving them a plug here on creating a high value audience list that they used for this test. And we targeted just that audience, but we also wanted to see what was the performance if we expanded beyond it as well. Looking for that audience first, but then also finding kind of similar cohorts of users. And what it really kind of gave us the insight on is that it followed and tracked very closely to the macro kind of trends that we see when testing this more broadly. Is that it's just more efficient, more reach, more leads, improved cost per lead. And I'll pause there, Mike, and kind of let you share a little bit more context.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And yes, very excited that we were, chosen to do this study with you. I think with Rustneck, it's always fine-tuning strategies to ensure, an efficient precision targeting, which in turn helps with our spend efficiencies. So always trying to maximize every penny of their budget. For me personally, from a strategic standpoint, always trying to find what I call the marketing budget sweet spot. Some people are spending too much, some people are spending too little. There is a diminishing return on ad spend for sure. So it's always fine tuning the little details to really help them be more efficient. And if you think about the Rusnik Auto Group, just full context, like they're a luxury group out of Southern California with ultra lux brands as well. So you think Rolls-Royce, Bentley, very, very small audiences that you're going to target there. So we do utilize some of those high value audience lists from, another plug, Equifax, as the seed list. And I think this test, the hypothesis was, that we're going to extend our reach. We're going to grow our lead count, better qualified leads, higher quality leads, and also reduce the cost at the same time. And the hypothesis did prove to be true. And I think it was, something that we tested across 15 tops, and everybody, saw the value there and saw the success. And I think for us, from a lead form standpoint, in the past, some of the historical data performance was, lots of leads, but not a lot of appointments set, some bad information in there. So I think the qualifications across this as well, on top of obviously that the machine learning algos and the advancement of the platform really just made this so successful that, it's something that we're utilizing moving forward. I think one key call out here is, and this data point's not actually on there, and I think it helps prove some of the quality of the lead, is that the stores actually grew appointment setting, throughout this time by 63%. So to me, that right there is getting the other part of the story, because we don't always have that part of the story. And I encourage anybody on this call, whether you're, in the marketing department, whether you're GMs, any decision makers, always bring information from the store and what's happening at the store to these meetings with your agencies, because it's very valuable to help us pinpoint and identify the quality of the traffic that we are driving. So again, overall, very successful. Thanks again to Ryan and team for, working with us to do this, and we're going to raise our hand for the next one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ryan knows we're signed up for more testing, but it is fantastic. I love to see this, and the changes Meta's made, Ryan, to continue to improve lead quality, which is always going to be important to dealers. It's always evolving and continuing. So I know you've got some more screenshots and examples. It's my favorite part. So
Yep. Yeah, mine too. Because candidly, it's one of the biggest objections that I've heard almost my entire time here at Meta is I've tried lead ads before. Like they were terrible. Just being frank with you. It's just the volume was there, but the quality wasn't. And what I would encourage you is, again, like back to that same example that I shared earlier of like check your biases. Like I check my biases here every day at Meta because the team's constantly evolving and tweaking these solutions. And there has been a tremendous amount of focus from our product teams, our engineering teams, even the auction like calibrations that happen to find the right users. So much work has been put into these lead ad formats. It's a big bet and a pillar for Meta for the future that we'll walk you through some of the key changes that have kind of launched already that can help you further calibrate for quality. But also there's a lot on the horizon as well. So one of the first best practices and recommendations, you might recall like a traditional instant form lead ad is kind of what looks like on the left, where you click the ad, there's a quick name and email field and a submit, and it auto populates with the whatever details we have on the Meta side for that user. And users click and submit. That is the default kind of form setting today. Whenever you're creating a instant form lead ad at the ad level, when you create the form, it's going to default to more volume. There is a very easy toggle that when you select it, it says high intent, that actually changes the user experience to introduce additional steps in the process for that user to take before that lead is submitted. Some of the steps include more presentation of like, what is this offer, this information about? What is the questions that you might have that you include that are custom? A verification screen that confirms once they submit their email and phone number or any qualifying details that this is right before they submit. And then the call to action button changes as well. The reality here is that there is no way that a user could take all of these different actions and submit without them being like somewhat qualified as kind of one piece. So we're creating candidly a little bit more friction in the process, but it does further identify like more signals of intent when you use the high intent form as your kind of go-to-market approach.
Yeah, a bit more friction, but I really do consider myself the average user. I know enough about technology to be dangerous, but I'm certainly not the expert. I'll answer a question. I might answer
Yep.
two. Don't give me more than two. Are you kidding me? After I get to the second,
Yep.
I'm already done. But this is a really interesting way, and again, to improve that lead quality, because quantity's fine, but let's improve that quality. This is really
Yep.
love that.
We take it a step further as well because what we're finding too is that like especially for like higher volume stores, larger metro markets, there's a lot of opportunities and your budget as it scales up, we can capture a lot of leads. And so there's still sometimes feedback that we have is like really it's not about like only quality, it's also about calibrating like your operations of my team can only handle so much sometimes. So we have additional levers that you can use to be able to further refine the types of leads that you capture. One of them, to Aaron's point, are custom questions. You can layer in additional custom questions to really help further kind of qualify. That gets you more information in your CRM for one. But it also helps further kind of create some of those additional steps that users have to take to ensure that they really do have the intent you're looking for. That's one piece, and we do recommend 1 to 2 at most. Don't go crazy creating like 10 questions. But 1 to 2 questions tends to be the best kind of sweet spot. The other piece that we also see is that it's globally available. It's called conditional logic. And I'm really excited about this one because this is like low friction to set up and create. But it really helps, I think, further calibrate how many leads you get and the types of leads that you get versus sending traffic to your website. So I'll give you an example. Conditional logic basically allows you to decide that if someone answers a question in a certain way, whether it's they select a certain set of options or a different option, you can decide whether or not they proceed to the next step in the form, or do you route them to a thank you page that directs them to your dealership website. A really common example that we see used, and it seems to be pretty efficient as best we can see so far, is asking the question, how soon do you expect to purchase or lease a vehicle? ASAP, in the next month, in the next 3 months, not soon, just looking. Without conditional logic, no matter what the user selects, they'll go to the next step in the form. With conditional logic, you could specify that, okay, anybody that selects, you know what, I'm not buying soon, I'm just looking, route them to your SRP on the dealer website. But everybody else, let's continue to nurture them through the form. So there are ways that you can ask qualifying questions that kind of create a decision tree of is this a lead or is this not a lead, that you can further refine for quality as well.
Yeah, and Ryan, this is something again you've pointed out, partner with your agency on a lot of this. Do you have dealers or have you seen dealers who self-serve with this, or is the majority of this conditional logic set up with an agency?
I think like right now today, it's available in the UI. Any advertiser, small, medium, large business, or agency can use this today. But what I will encourage is that more often than not, the agencies just have a little bit of a scaled benefit,
Yeah.
just being able to capture learnings of what's working, what's not, what are the types of questions other dealers are using that are driving performance. And in my time working on the automotive group side, I'll share that it never ceased to surprise me of how creative dealers can be on finding ways to get a little bit more out of performance. So working with an agency partner that can help kind of expose some of those best practices, I think is a really strong call out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then this is the last one that is rolled out now. It's starting to move to global availability, but it rolls out in waves. So if you don't see it yet in the UI, it's coming very quickly. Many advertisers should already have access to this. But one of the feedback items that we receive about lead quality is the phone number that comes over in the lead is a bogus number, or I can't contact that user. And we have a lot of safeguards that we put in place to help prevent that, but things can still slip through, especially if the number looks real and it's a real number. It's just somebody else's that somebody might fill in there. So we started to experiment and now I've started to roll out an SMS verification process, which is kind of slick. See if I can get this to work. Where same type of lead form, but when you submit your cell phone number, it does ask you for a quick 8-digit code that you can one click select and pass it into the form to verify that this is my cell phone number. I am the owner of that number. That's a big deal because now you have a lot more confidence that the phone number that you're receiving is a contactable number. It's the real cell phone of that individual. And so that's one where I'd encourage you guys to test this as well. There's always that balance between volume and efficiency of leads and getting just sufficient like quality leads as well. So I'd caution of trying to do too many of these things all at once, but thinking about how you kind of test into further qualifying the leads that you get. This is a really interesting one, I think, for dealers in particular.
I think this is a great call out, the phone number especially because in the past, I know, 2, 3 years ago, it was just bad phone number, bad phone number, bad phone number. So if we can qualify this better, it helps with that, right? It helps alleviate that reason for it to be potentially a poor lead. But again, there's a lot of things we can test here and see what works.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really interesting because I'm so quick to, all right, hit it because my iPhone just
Right.
says the code. It's easy. I love this. But yeah, I agree, Ryan. Let's not throw everything on at the same time. Test it out for sure.
Yeah, where this does
Me.
work with conditional logic as well, we would just
Yeah.
caution of trying to enable too many of these at once. And we'll talk through like testing, like what are kind of optimal tests to do this in here in just a
Yeah,
minute.
absolutely. Now, this next session, when we started planning for the webinar, and you said you wanted to talk about dealer websites, I said, buddy, you're with Meta. Are you sure? You sure this is what you want to talk about? So I was shocked, but I love this next section you put together on, yeah, what happens after the click, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I know we kind of focused in on like on Meta platform leads first. And just to kind of briefly recap, there's a lot of different lead formats. There's the instant form lead ads that have a lot of different levers now for quality that you can better capture quality leads. There's click to messaging that integrates with a lot of the messaging partners you are already using. And there's click to call ads that are also can be used with a call tracking number as well. All of those lead formats open up the opportunity for some of our most advanced targeting, as long as there's no offer of credit or finance in your copy or creative, where you can use Advantage Plus audiences, which looks for custom audiences, expands beyond them. So there's a really interesting opportunity to test and explore kind of leads on Meta and unlock some of those advanced strategies. On your dealer website, though, I mean, we want to be able to drive traffic to your website where all of these different conversion moments and all of the different kind of opportunities to engage a customer where they're at in their shopping journey lives. Whether that's a customer that's about to schedule their a trade appraisal using like a trade-in tool, whether it's trade pending, KVB ICO, you name it, whether they're using the get e-price button on a VDP on your DealerOn website, all of these different lead moments, there's a lot of them. And so one of the things that we'll talk through today, we're not going to get into the technical kind of setups of how to capture all these signals and kind of the how behind all of this. But what we want to nod to is a few things. Number one, there's a lot of different conversion moments on your dealer website. And in order to be able to optimize web leads on Meta, we need to be able to hear and know when those events occur. So when somebody submits a trade-in form, when somebody submits a service scheduler, when somebody submits a credit app, when somebody clicks to call, or better, if somebody calls and it's a qualified opportunity, all those lead signals being able to pass those to Meta is a critical step in this. And admittedly, it's hard. I'm just going to be really frank. This is one where I think from a technical lift perspective, where this can be done self-service, the majority of this we see supported by agency partners like DealerOn, who are building out the models. They're being able to listen for the events that are happening across your websites. And even going the step further of integrating with some of our more advanced ways of capturing those events, like the conversions API, which is a much bigger lift for an individual rooftop versus an agency that can scale it pretty quickly. So, step one in being able to support driving leads to your dealer website, it's really about asking the question with your agency partner is, am I set up for success? What are the lead signals? What are the conversion moments on my dealer website that my agency partner is tracking today? And admittedly, I'll just be really frank, there are still going to be gaps. We're still trying to capture the scope of these signals. But as we get better at this, we'll see some of those gaps close, and we'll talk about that in just a second. The two key ways that we see agency partners in particular starting to build out this listening for the lead events that happen on your dealer websites. One is just strictly through Google Tag Manager. The industry as a whole has done a remarkable job standardizing events for Google Analytics. The Automotive Standards Council, if you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to Google it, check it out. DealerOn has a number of articles about it as well with their team. But the industry's done a remarkable job of tracking all of those different lead signals that happen to pass into Google Analytics so that you can have a good feel for what's converting across your website, and the traffic and kind of the sourcing and the different channels of what that's driving. There's ways that we're partnering with partners like DealerOn to be able to listen for those events and pass those as a lead signal to Meta so that it's not a heavy lift for agencies to be able to pull this out. So more to come there, but that's one model that we're seeing be effective at capturing a bigger breadth of the lead opportunities that happen on a dealer website. The other is direct integrations. It's interesting too that some of the partners that are passing conversions to Google Analytics are doing it through APIs. They're not doing it through traditional kind of like pixel placement, which is great. They're seamless, they're safe, they're efficient, they scale, but it's hard to listen for those events. So one of the things that we're also working through is partners like Gubagoo, for instance, was first to market here working with us, where they integrated the conversions API. It can now pass a chat lead to Meta as a lead signal to be able to better represent when a chat lead occurs, which is huge because now it's not based off of a click or some sort of activity. It's based off of a real lead event. So as we keep going down the path here, the action for dealers isn't to, I think, go out and try and solve this yourself. I would really encourage you, like, work with your agency partners, but start asking the question of across my dealer website, I know, like, what are my optimization goals that I'm using today and why? I think we talked a little bit about that earlier, but also my readiness for how do I get closer to optimizing to leads on my website? What are we tracking today? What could we be tracking that maybe we're not yet? And share those. Like your agency partners have direct lines into Meta to be able to help us expose where we can lean in and better support gaps that you might be seeing.
Yeah, I mean, we have a significant advantage when when we are supporting our website customers with digital advertising as well and social strategies. And it allows us to we're always optimizing websites, no question, but specific to the social interactions. Mike, I know, you partner with a lot of dealers. So talk about just real quick, and I want to make sure we've got time for the rest of the slides, but advantages to having your website provider also do DigAd. Do you just hop over the fence and talk to the website team and say, hey, what are we doing?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think there's a huge advantage of having, a dealer on website, dealer on advertising, because exactly what Ryan's pointing out, how are we mapping everything out? How are we setting everything up? And it is difficult. It is difficult. Nothing's linear. There's a lot of different touch points. There's a lot of different things that we need to set up. But I think dealers, marketing agencies who are, centralized, working with agencies, work with your agencies to set up these signals properly, because all it's going to do is create efficient targeting, which in turn is going to create more higher intent quality leads, which in turn is going to help you with your spend. A lot of pain points, spend and leads, right? So setting this up properly, working with some of these new features is only going to be beneficial.
Awesome. Perfect. And Ryan, I think these last 15 minutes, you're going to do my favorite thing, which is give people homework. I'm not a teacher, but I should be because I just love telling people what to do. So everybody come back to us if you've been multitasking, which most of us are always multitasking. Here comes your homework and your next steps to get your social strategies optimized.
Yeah, I think there's kind of three kind of key items that I encourage teams to be thinking about. Number one is we talked about optimization goals and how campaigns are set up is one of the most important kind of parts of what outcomes you're capturing from Meta. So step one is I encourage you to be working with your agency partners to kind of think through, are the goals, the outcomes, the objectives that I'm using, do they align to my goals and how I'm measuring performance? That's step one. Step two, as we're thinking about lead formats and opportunities, one of the lowest friction ways to start capturing leads and taking advantage of some of these capabilities is with on Meta platform leads. So be testing, thinking about working with your partner on how you can be testing some of these lead formats, whether it's click to call, click to messaging, instant forms, conditional logic, or the two-factor phone authentication. A lot of ways to be testing into lead formats in particular. And then number three, it's kind of like a broader call to action is like being more intentional about like learning agendas and how you might kind of test whether or not the changes you're making are driving an impact. One of the tools that we have to support that is called the experiments tools within Meta Business Manager. And within it, any dealer, whether it's self-service or from an agency side, can set up a controlled A/B test experiment. This is really powerful because it creates holdouts where somebody that's seeing the control ads, the campaigns that you set up in the control, will be different from users that see the other testing ad. That's really helpful because that really helps with absolute certainty confirm, are you seeing results because of the ad or are you seeing results for other reasons? So being able to use these A/B tests, it's free. It's part of the solutions. DealerOn is well positioned to help support a lot of these as well. We encourage the use of those to control how you capture the learnings as you think about testing some of these strategies. The first one is just calibrating for lead quality. We won't go into all the details on the slides. These will be takeaways that DealerOn shares afterwards. But thinking about how you start testing whether or not certain questions, certain tools like conditional logic or the mobile phone verification make a meaningful impact on performance. The second test that we recommend is the impact of web lead optimization. So right now, most dealers are using automotive inventory ads driving traffic to your website. Thinking about what happens when you pair that same strategy with a lead optimization in addition to view content. That again, I think is really interesting because we'd be capturing more in-market opportunity. We'd be capturing users that we predict will take either a VDP action or a lead action. And hopefully the goal there, the hypothesis is that you'll see more leads reflected in your campaigns because we're optimizing to the thing that Meta predicts will happen. And then lastly is more of an accountability test of we've shared the case study and the meta-analysis using Advantage Plus audiences. This is the same test structure that Rusnak launched, where we invite you to again, hold us accountable to that performance. I'm really confident that this one works. So I encourage you guys to use this kind of framework as well, where it's basically taking a custom audience, targeting that list, versus taking a custom audience that's expanded with our Advantage Plus machine learning. And I know we have a few FAQs, Aaron. I didn't know if you wanted us to go through these just for sake of time, or do we want to maybe save these as a takeaway?
Real quick, I want to call out in the chat, Bridget had a question that I was lucky enough to catch Colleen Harris here on the side. So she's noted that ads are categorizing themselves as organic social versus paid social in Google Analytics, even though she's added paid social to the URL parameters. Colleen says it's a known bug. Google's working on it, nothing to do on the Meta side. So wanted to call that out for everyone. If you're looking at your analytics, wondering where's my paid social activity, that's why. But with these FAQs, I think this is a fantastic takeaway. The lead ad specifically, I think, is where we probably haven't given a lot of thought. I think dealers who maybe are just starting off on social, AIA, we understand that's what I know, that's what I can do. But these additional strategies, this is really how you enhance those final goals and that optimization that you talked about. So we'll leave this here in the deck for everyone. Everybody's got a copy of the deck there in the chat, but we'll send it out later as well. So, Mike, I wanted to give you a little bit of time to talk again about how DealerOn does this. And really what I recommend everybody takes this session with is these are questions to ask your own vendor of, are you doing this? Because they should in all of this. And if they're not, you call me because we will, right? So Mike, take us
Yeah,
through
there's
some of
there's a
this.
lot of things that they should be doing that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is what Ryan's pointed out, and great presentation, great information. I think is, the lead ads and how they've changed. And honestly, I think, it's probably something that a lot of either GMs or marketing groups on here that are looking at that and saying, we've tested those in the past, they were terrible leads, like we don't want to go back. But I encourage that we definitely try that because there's so many different things that we can test with that. Some of the information I'm going to go through here over the next couple slides, some of it's duplicate, but it's really just showing, hey, we're aligned with what Meta is doing. We believe in the Meta platform. It's, incredibly popular and it's very successful for our clients. So a few different things that we do from a targeting standpoint. We've touched on, the third bullet there, but really the placements, right? So automatically Meta is going to optimize for best places to show that ad across their apps, services, real time. I think marketplace is a big one for automotive, but really leaning in on their placements to optimize for not only from a targeting standpoint, but again, spend efficiency. You'll hear me talk about that a lot. Spend efficiency, targeting efficiency. They go hand in hand, and it's something you should really be focused on. Detailed targeting, so layering in luxury automotive, off-roading, electric vehicles. Those are a couple of the things that I put in there. Layering those in always helps, especially for a group. We discussed Rustneck. They have interesting brands, smaller audiences. Sometimes some of these entrances help find those people, but you also don't want to refine too much. You want to be sometimes a little bit more broad so you're not, keeping your sample size of your audience that you're targeting at the right size that you want. And then the big one that we talked about, the Advantage Plus platform, I can't speak highly enough. The case study kind of speaks for itself, but everybody out there who's using those custom high value lists from an Equifax, another plug, that's the seed list. And then they go out and they find those same people. So it's extending that reach, duplicating those efforts just by utilizing this platform. It's brilliant, and I'm looking forward to keep testing and using this to see all the additional efficiencies that will run for our clients.
Awesome. No, love this. Mike, I'm going to ask you a question here that came up in the chat earlier, and I held it to the end. I know you've got another few slides, but think about video in all this. We haven't talked about video in any of these.
Next slide.
Okay. Oh, I did it. Yes. All right. I knew I saved it. Okay.
So I think it's important I always talk about multiple campaign formats, multiple objectives. I think you want to make sure that you're always in front of somebody, at the right time, with the relevant messaging. We always talk about that. You hear that. It's like a cliche at this point. I think one of the biggest formats that we use, and we've been using for the last 2 years, because I think it was new 2.5 years ago. We launched it right away. It was instant experience. So you can categorize that as awareness or consideration and discovery. But the thing that I love about it the most is it's very, very engaging. And why is it engaging? Because you're utilizing multiple creative assets, video being one of them, right? That start frame, press play, then it's going to flow into your beautiful interior, exterior images. It's going to give you some strong CTAs to either browse inventory or whatever you want to put on there. You can put reserve yours, and then eventually it'll drill down to a VDP. So the reason why I say that this is something you should be using, I mean, if you're not using this, that's got to be a crime, because it's 5x more engagement than your AIA ads, meaning people are engaging with it. They're either liking, commenting, clicking. They're very, very engaged. So, like I said, this can be awareness, consideration, and discovery, but it can flow all the way to that VDP where somebody can submit a lead. So video is utilized within that campaign format. I love to see people in the chat say, yes, we are using this, or no, we are not. I'd be very curious to hear
Well,
the why not if they're not.
I'll keep you posted. But we did have the question of what's performing better, video or static images. And I mean, I think that's a tough question to ask on the whole.
Depends on objective, right? So video is going to create awareness. It's going to get views. It's going to get reach. Video is always popular. People love video. Static's going to get impressions and clicks, but I think there's different objectives there. So it's kind of hard to say which one works better, just because you're using it for a different reason.
Right.
I'd double down on that, but just giving you some context that I think is really interesting is that 50% of all engagement across Meta surfaces, Instagram and Facebook, is now with video. And the adoption in Reels and others. Now, to your point, like there is a place for static images, especially carousel for inventory.
Yeah.
But we can maybe have a follow-up conversation too that we share with a broader crew on some of the formats that speak to video that are really interesting that are available now and emerging because of, I think, the user behavior is changing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got someone in the chat who uses video for ad campaigns. They definitely keep people more engaged than the statics. So we can be more specific on videos. I think it's a good reminder to everybody. So there you go, Mike. Somebody's using video. You
Oh,
win.
I love it. I love it. And then yeah, of course. Oh, sorry. Go back. One thing I'm going to touch on, then I'll go to the next one pretty quickly. Then the different formats, right? So instant experience, AIAs, Ryan touched on them. That's your catalogs. It's clicking through. And then of course retargeting, always staying in front of those shoppers who necessarily aren't converting, but they could be engaging in a different way that's high value. And then the big one on the next slide we've talked about lead gen, right? So that evolution, Ryan's already touched on the qualifying steps. I just wanted to put that in there to reinforce, that the improved targeting, improved lead quality, it's overall going to help increase those appointments set, right? I talk about, I think, the back end of the story that we don't really talk about on the agency side, but I do with anybody that I'm managing or working with. I want to know what you're doing in your store with these leads, because I want to understand and inform my quality a little bit better as well. So if I'm sending you 100 leads from Meta or from social, like how many appointments are we setting with those, right? And eventually, can we identify how many deliveries we're getting from that? The more information that you can bring to those meetings with your agencies, the better that we can paint that picture and really fully understand what's working on both sides.
Awesome. Team, we got through it. Ooh, it was touch and go there for a few minutes. I cannot thank you, gentlemen, enough. Thank you, everyone here in the chat. If you've got questions for the team, though, send them over, webinars@dealeron.com. Gentlemen, thanks for spending an hour with us, and I'll give everybody 2 whole minutes back. So thanks so much. Have a great day.